Well, this is in fact going to be a Public Safety Committee hearing. I'm Jack Weiss. I'm joined by Ed Reyes and Dennis Zine. It's Monday, November 17. Ms. Stengel, in terms of consent items for this morning, I understand, first of all, we're going to continue items 3 and 4. Okay, so if we could please continue items 3 and 4. Items 5 and 6 could go on consent, because 6 is a report and 5 is a donation acceptance.
Very good.
Is that cool?
Right.
All right. They've been consented to. We're going to do 1, 2, 3. We're going to do 1, 2, both of which involve Deputy Chief Charlie Beck. So please call item 1. We'll do DNA first, then we'll do fingerprints.
Good morning, John White, City Clerk. Item 1, this department to present verbal report relative to the status of DNA testing, backlog, and cold hits, and other DNA-related matters.
And before you guys begin, I just want to thank Deputy Chief Beck and the many detectives and other officers, sworn officers who work for him, because on Friday I visited the Pipertech, I guess the property room and the freezers, and it was the most amazing sight. I saw, you probably had close to a dozen sworn senior detectives there, going item by item, envelope by envelope, bulky item by bulky item, to catalog literally every piece of evidence that the LAPD maintains in its evidence freezers. And you did that all weekend, and you just told me that you are up to 25,000 items cataloged. It's an extraordinary effort. And I'm confident that you will build a computer system which will put you on top of it, so that LAPD never loses track of it again. But I just wanted to thank you and the men and women who work for you. It was very impressive to see.
Well, and we appreciate that. Obviously, I highly depend on the people that I work with to do this, and they did a great job. Gave up their weekend, came in, worked all weekend on it. 25,000 items of evidence catalog. That's about, just to give you some perspective, that's about a quarter of what we have to get through. Now, these are not all rape kits, so please don't mistake what I'm saying. These are all items of evidence that are contained in frozen storage. This is homicide evidence. This is assault evidence. This is evidence related to other crimes against a person.
And for the record, we're joined by Councilmember Parks. So please continue, Chief.
So it's a huge job, but it's a necessary job before we can really give this committee and my boss the quantitative answer to the questions that are always asked, which is, how much is the backlog, what kind of backlog is it, what type of cases are in backlog, and what do we need to do about it. But first we have to find out exactly what's in there. So we're doing that. And it will take a while, and I'll update this committee every Monday on our progress.
Well, thank you for that. I'd like to hear from you in terms of, as we always do every week here, discussion of where the department is in the DNA and rape kit issue.
And Yvette and Marty can update you on the items that they generally do.
Yvette Sanchez-Owens, LAPD SID. I have real good news this week. We're starting to see some progress on the use of the contracting money. This week we have 7,114 cases in the backlog. That's 25 less than last week. Of that, 208 cases are rape cases that are in analysis but not yet completed. 290 of those are other requests for analysis that are not yet completed. 6,616 are other rape kits in property that have not yet been requested for analysis. So far this year, we've booked in 807 rape kits. That's 14 more than last week. Of those, 536 have not been requested for analysis. I'd like to give an update on the $100,000 that you generously gave to us to work our backlog. We've exhausted all of those funds. With that, we were able to get through 99 cases. 4 cases are still in progress. 95 cases so far have been screened. 57 of those were positive for probative biological evidence that was moved on to profiling. 8 of those are returned back from the vendor and pending review for upload into CODIS. So far, 19 cases have been uploaded into CODIS, and we've had 5 hits, and I'd like the detectives to give a little information on the hits.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez-Owens.
Our CODIS hits is Detective Miyakawa, Robbery Homicide Division. Detective Marty Miyakawa, Robbery Homicide Division. 2008 CODIS hits year-to-date, 229, as compared to 285 for last year, with a 20% decrease. Homicide hits, we've had 29, as compared to 34 for last year, with a 15% decrease. Cold case homicide at Robbery Homicide is handling 5 or 17% of these hits. We've had 132 sexual assault hits, as compared to 143 for last year. Cold case sexual assault is handling 60 or 45% of these hits, and rape special section is handling 20 or 15% of these hits. The divisions are handling 52 or 40% of these hits. All other hits, we've had 68, as compared to 108 hits for last year, with a 37% decrease. We've had 34 burglaries and 30 robberies. Of the 229 CODIS hits, robbery homicide personnel is handling 85 or 37% of these hits. And we've had 5 hits on the Weiss grant or fund, and 3 of those did fall out of statute. 2 are currently being investigated by detectives.
Thank you for that update. Colleagues, do you have any questions on the DNA issue? Mr. Parks, you're moving in your chair as if
No, I just
questions
want to
are
know,
being generated.
we were going to deal with the grant on DNA. Has that already been resolved? Or am I confusing it with another committee? Do we have something on?
I don't think we had a DNA grant on the agenda today. We had a different grant. Could be your committee this afternoon, Mr. Parks.
Let me see. Yeah, I got it confused. Okay.
Look, the bottom line is, I believe the work that you have, that you're doing right now to catalog and itemize every piece of evidence, just so I think you said it, but just so my colleagues understand, the estimate is 7,000, 7,100 rape kits.
Right.
But a rape kit is biological evidence that's collected from a woman following, or sometimes from a man following a sexual assault. But there are other items of evidence that are collected in the course of that investigation that are put in separate envelopes, or sometimes put in manila or boxes. And so that's what, and not all the cases that are in the freezer relate to sexual assaults. There are violent crimes and homicides as well. So that's why there are as many as 80,000 pieces of evidence in the freezers. Only 7,000 of those are technically rape kits, but there could be other items of evidence collected from the crime scene or.
And we want to be definitive that the number is 7,000 or whatever the number turns out to be. We have these are, the property system, the property management system was never really designed to give the information that it's being asked to give right now. And so we're creating a new system so that we can query it and give, accurate information on how many rape kits are in, how many rape kits are approaching statute, and absolutely categorize these things so that we can have an informed discussion when we talk about rape kits.
Let me ask you a follow-up on that. I know Mr. Reyes wants to follow up on that as well. The specific question I wanted to ask is, I noticed when I was over there that some of the newer pieces of evidence have a barcode sticker on them that I guess is placed on them by the evidence, or by the property people. It's not related to their DR number. It's just a way to track that.
So it's how they track them and locate them.
That thing. Older items don't have that.
No, they don't.
What thought, if any, have you given to that issue? That's just going to stay the way it is? I mean, you're not going to be able to barcode old items, are you?
I don't think we'll need to. I think that that we'll when we get done with this, we'll have a healthy discussion with property division about what they need to do for their tracking and to make their system whole. If they want to go back and barcode them, then we will help them do that. I think that the barcoding is primarily a locator system for court retrieval and for analysis retrieval. And so we'll have to have a discussion with property division about what they want to do with that. Now, the recommendations of the task force that the chief of police's commission on this may be that we go to a barcoding system for all evidence that leads to a different tracking system. I'm not prepared to make that recommendation yet, but we obviously need a 21st century method for handling this stuff, and right now we're doing it the really old way with pen and paper and very non-focused tracking systems and databases. So we're trying to bring that up to speed.
Chief Beck, when we look at these numbers, they're pretty startling. 7,000, 250,000, and I.
You should see the freezers if you want to talk staggering.
Well, maybe I will.
And you're more than welcome to. They're working on them every day.
But when we put those numbers out to the public, and they start thinking, okay, how are we going to digest this?
Yeah.
How does this get processed? Then you put in the context within the discussion of personnel. We have, just from a general point of view, violence in neighborhoods, we move personnel there to cover that. And we lessen personnel over here because it's not as hot. Now detective work, you have a pool of detectives that are doing X, Y, Z tasks. Now you got this huge number looming over everybody. Does that mean like we're going to look at phases and how we use personnel to address these thousands of cases, or we're just going to let it queue up and get to the cases before the statute of limitations run out? What's the thought process there?
Well, I'm going to use what I have easiest access to and the most of to determine the scope of this problem, and we're going to do it. It will be done within the month, and we will be able to quantify exactly what's in the freezers, exactly what's coming up on statute, exactly how many of them reach levels of priority where they have to be examined by SID staff, and exactly what needs to be sent out. And so we can have a really good discussion then about how we want to use our resources. I in the best of all worlds, I wouldn't be using detectives to do this. This is a very laborious task that doesn't really go to their level of expertise. But we realize that we have a situation here that requires drastic measures, and so we're taking those measures. I'm using people that I normally wouldn't to do this task, and we're going to get through it, and we're going to get through it really quickly.
But does that mean we consider using the employees who are civilians? Does it mean we look at creative approaches to personnel, maybe with universities or studying criminology? Does it mean, do we start thinking that way, or is it?
Well, hopefully we'll get we will get through this in a short time period, and we have set up a system by which we won't have to do this again. So this task should never have to occur again. Okay. So, but it's really important that I get through it quickly because we have funds pending. We have cases that are running statute. I mean, I would have loved to have done this with volunteers or some other way, but I don't think the city can afford to do it that way.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's just my decision based on what I think is a priority for certainly this committee and the chief of police and the people of Los Angeles. So.
By the way, there were civilians there
over
the weekend working. It's not all detectives.
Right. Again, I appreciate this. It's just trying to get a picture, a bird's eye view of just what a challenge this is, and I congratulate you.
It is. Well, it's a challenge, but this is something we can do.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on the DNA item? I see no questions. We appreciate not just the report, but just how dedicated you and your entire team have been in dealing with this issue, and look forward to hearing from you again. I want to thank the detectives as well, RNTV, and thank you, Ms. Sanchez. All right, so let's call item 2, please.
Item 2, Police Department to present verbal report regarding the fingerprint lab and the status of the department's Scientific Investigation Division Task Force.
Okay, on item 2, oh, by the way, Mr. Parks, you have questions on item 6, I'm told, so we're going to recall to reconsider item 6. That was your motion. Ms. Goodrich, that was the matter that I think you were here on. So
That's going to go to Budget and Finance, we'll deal with it there.
but you don't, so Ms. Stengel, do we need to hold item 6 for questions here or not?
No.
Well, Mr. Hirsch and Ms. Stengel will,
The ones I had a concern with was on 5.
fine.
But no, I'll deal with my issues at the Budget and Finance on 6.
All right, I'll let them figure that out. I set this hearing for today after the news reports of a few weeks ago because, those are just terribly concerning reports, and I know that is in large measure why you and why Mr. Chaliff have been assigned by Chief Bratton to head up a task force and fix the problems and report back. So that's why we set the hearing, and we're pleased that you're both here, and I'm very pleased at the forthright manner in which you've all been dealing with this issue. So why don't you take it away on fingerprints?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. In 2006 and 2007, 2 cases came to light within Los Angeles Police Department's fingerprint analysis unit.
Pardon me, on item 6, I'm told that I need to affirmatively instruct the CLA to report back. So, okay. And then we're keeping the item here? All right. So I said those magic words. Pardon me for the interruption.
It's all right.
All right.
2 cases came to light involving misidentification of latent print evidence by Scientific Investigation Division personnel. The misidentification was bad enough, but the systems, the cross-checking, the systems that are put in place for verification also broke down, and so these cases ended up making it out of latent prints and into the court system, and caused significant impact. Discipline occurred in those cases. Those cases are also the subject of a suit against the city of Los Angeles. So I was hoping that we wouldn't go into a lot of detail, although much detail has been reported in the press about them. Because of those 2 cases and the DNA backlog and some other things, the Chief of Police commissioned a task force co-chaired by Mr. Chaliff and myself to look into Scientific Investigation Division and to address some problems that on the face of it appeared to exist. He also moved Scientific Investigation Division into Detective Bureau so that I would have direct control over it and be able to quickly make changes that needed changes. We've talked a little bit about what's going on in the DNA process. On the fingerprint side, Vet Sanchez Owens, who has been the commanding officer there for the past little over a year, almost 2 years, made a number of changes in the way that the control systems were set up, that evidence was retained by individuals, and it has done a good job of cleaning up what she's been able to do given the facilities that they have. There are a number of things that we need to do in the fingerprint unit, and we're not by any means done with our research on this. But one of them is to change their facilities. They need to be in an area that has more conducive to supervision. Their supervision ratio is not good. It's 15 to 1. Not adequate. They need to be under one roof, within one chain of command. We need to have a better system for checking in, checking out packages. We need a number of things that we're looking at. What I'd like to suggest is that since I'm going to be here on Mondays anyway for the foreseeable future to keep this committee updated on DNA, I would be glad to make this a part of my report, our progress on modernizing the fingerprint unit. a lot of really good employees that work very, very hard there at a very laborious, very concentration-focused type task, and really have been under-supported in their facilities and in some other ways. But we're going to change that, and we're going to find them better quarters, better space. We're going to address the supervision ratio. We're going to address the way that evidence is handled, and we're going to make the changes that we need to make to ensure that the instances that occurred in 06 and 07 don't happen again. We're also doing a review of cases handled by the individuals involved in this to make sure that these are the only 2 instances, and I'll be able to get back to you on that also. Although that is obviously many of these are long-term employees, have touched many cases in their career, so it's going to take a while to get through that. We have a number of consultants working with this on this. There's some very fine labs in the local area. There's also national labs. So there are exemplars for how to handle this, and we'll be able to use those and use our consultants and get through this also.
We have already been in contact with our local, the district attorney's office to ensure that
Right.
any issues they have, we're addressing. And because in the first issue that obviously arises in the mind of those in the criminal court system is Brady. What I'm about to say, I don't want to underestimate what the issues are, but in my 40-something years of experience, fingerprints are very rarely the key evidence. In fact, DA has informed us he doesn't file cases just with a fingerprint. They need some corroboration, because there are many reasons why fingerprint might be there. But that being said, we are, for example, if the district attorney has any cases in which they need to go to trial that may involve some of these people, we'll just have them retested, and that's already begun.
We have a good communication stream with them. They've already been in contact with us on several cases that are ongoing. We've given them the names of the individuals whose cases are being looked at, and we've redone their exam.
So, what's going to happen going forward is cooperative with the district attorney. The district attorney's office obviously is the one that has to make determinations as to what information should be given to defense lawyers in both future, present, and past cases, and we're working closely with them. And by the way, they've been through this in issues relating to other law enforcement agencies where there were issues relating to scientific evidence.
I realize that Chief Beck is here now and wasn't in charge then, so my question that I'm about to ask understands that. But was there some breakdown of some sort in communication amongst the chain of command?
Yes.
Here?
The simple answer is yes, and just leave it at that, because as Chief Beck said, there is a lawsuit filed. In fact, it's a class action with one member right now, the woman who was extradited, which was one of the 2 cases. So we would be better off if you want to discuss it further either in closed session or at some other point. Sorry to step on the city attorney giving advice, but at least in my opinion, I think that's
I
what
just
would be
appreciate
better.
the fact that you answered the question by forthrightly, and I really can't tell you how much I appreciate the fact that the leadership of the department, Chief Bratton, the 2 of you, and Ms. Sanchez, and every single person who has addressed this has been very forthright and very direct about it.
I wrote a motion on this dated October 17th, directed Public Safety, seconded by Tony Cardenas, on this specific issue, asking for a report to include specific actions being taken to prevent such errors in the future, and also conduct a comprehensive audit of latent print unit. And noting that 1 analyst was fired, 3 were disciplined, and 2 supervisors were removed. Now, the supervisors that were removed, they were in a capacity to do something to make sure this didn't occur, I would assume. is that going to be included? And this motion's not addressed in the agenda on item number 2, but there was a motion directing this particular matter to this committee dated October 17th. So I don't know if I want a formal report back on that, or you mentioned coming back every Monday and discussing it. My concern is if you have 2 supervisors who are removed, who aren't doing their job, and it's a serious matter, which now there's a lawsuit over something very serious, and I don't want to get into a personnel matter or make a formal issue of a formal report that becomes public record, but it's a very serious matter. It wasn't addressed in this particular discussion.
I
don't-
can,
you aware of the motion that was posted on this?
yes,
Yes.
I can offer one. One of the
ahead.
supervisors has retired.
Okay. What about
And,
the other one?
I have to say, I don't know what the term removed means in that.
But the what?
in that- When you say removed in that context,
Well, according to the report we had, while LAPD has since fired 1 analyst, disciplined 3 others, and removed 2 supervisors, when it says removed, are they then removed to another position where they're supervising people if they've already done something wrong, not doing their job as a supervisor?
You know,
I'm looking at something where we're talking about people's freedoms, liberties, criminal
Right.
justice, and there's a lot of implication here. And I don't want to just gloss over it, and that's why I wanted to get a report to make sure whatever happened, and obviously things happen, how we could prevent it from happening again and take corrective action on the situation that did take place. And then, as Mr. Chalif said, there's already a lawsuit, and we don't know what else is going to fall from that.
just in general terms, because of the lawsuit, and then these are personnel matters. The involved analysts, the analysts that are involved have been taken out of the comparison piece of their job function. There has been discipline already in these matters. So right now we're dealing with it as a post-discipline matter. I can't change what's happened in the
Right.
discipline. So those analysts have been taken out of the comparison piece of their analyzation, so to limit further damage until we make sure and do the biopsy of their past cases, so we can decide what context to put this in. In other words, did they just not check appropriately, or is this a pattern? So until I do all those biopsies, I can't really tell you the answer on the 6 analysts involved. The supervisors, as Mr. Taylor said, one's retired, one has been removed from supervision duties and is working on administrative functions for Ms. Sanchez-Owens right now. So,
Not in the fingerprint unit, I assume.
well, it's in Scientific Investigation Division attached to the fingerprint unit.
So is there a professional standards investigation on these folks? Current investigation underway?
The investigations have been completed. There's no open investigation regarding any of this,
So
unfortunately.
everything has been resolved administratively?
Right, the administrative pieces, the personnel pieces have been resolved.
there may be civil service hearings.
There are
Appeal through the-
appeal
Right.
process, and actually, there are appeal processes that are ongoing on these. And there is the civil action. So.
And then with the audit of the unit, is the entire unit being audited? Are these the only individuals that they're looking at, or could it be wider than this particular?
Well, we're certainly going to start with these, and base how deep we go on what we find with these. If these are anomalies and these are the only 2 that we find, then that will have an impact on whether or not we decide to go deeper. If we find multiple other cases, and I don't know that we will, and don't misunderstand me,
So you're currently investigating to see if
we are
there's any-
currently looking at the standards within the fingerprint unit to make our determination on how far we go on this.
And then with Cal ID, with the automated print system, the person gets booked, there's now a system where you put your hand on a glass and automatically takes it, processes it. Did that correct any of the situation where people are cataloging? Is it automatically cataloged through that new system, the new print system, or I'd say relatively new, where they're not actually rolling, but it's on a glass that goes into a computer where it's analyzed? Because I remember the old system, they have a little magnifying glass,
They still do.
And the loops and the whirls and this and that to
They
find
still
out.
do.
Still do.
Because all of the things that are done, and Rebecca can correct me if I start, because I'm not an expert on the mechanics of this, but everything still has to be verified by a human being. I mean, we don't take a system's word for a positive identification. Everything has to be verified.
So when it's classified, when they classify it, it's actually classified by the individuals that are looking at those prints.
No, there's two systems, but just so you understand, this isn't television.
No, I'm talking about the real world.
Yeah,
Because I
no.
know that when people get booked now, they put their hand on the glass. Okay, what's it
Yeah.
called? LifeScan?
LifeScan.
LifeScan.
Yeah, Mr. Chaliff is correct. There's two different systems. That's ID's suspects that are in custody. The work that my division does is with latent prints that are evidence collected from a scene.
At a scene, lifted at a scene.
Yes.
And they're
And-
checking the loops and the whirls and.
Exactly. So what they do, if it's of sufficient quality to be run through LAFIS, then we do so. And then LAFIS will spit out any number of possibles.
Right.
And then a human has to take those possibles against the evidence and see if any of those match.
Okay. So that system, are we auditing to make sure that's correct? Not the computer aspect, the human aspect.
Yes,
And-
that
and-
is what we audit.
And one of the things we're discussing as part of our task force is additional quality control issues such as spot checks, blind verifications, other kinds of auditing techniques to determine whether or not the proficiency of people, proficiency testing.
And actually,
We've,
we've gone to blind
yeah,
verification.
we've already done the first audit that was the basis of the first article that appeared about 3 weeks ago, was an audit division process audit. Had to do with the processes, the controls in the system. Now we're going to go to a system of how do we start auditing the actual fingerprint examination?
Does this come under the consent decree?
No,
It does not.
we did it, audit division did it, because we're now probably the best trained in the country at doing these both audits of the numerical kind of audits and now a process and procedures audits. So.
But
they
this
did it.
particular situation wouldn't fall under that, the guideline.
No.
And one more situation, when you look at the individuals involved, was it negligence or was someone paid to misclassify for an individual? Did we look into that aspect, or was it just negligence or laziness where they weren't doing their job? Or was someone paid to push this aside or to not classify it properly
Well-
on a criminal case?
There's certainly no evidence that anybody was paid. Now, whether or not whether it was laziness or so it becomes either it's either negligence or inability. That I think. Go ahead.
Or just, we're getting back to the lawsuit again, so.
Yeah.
There is a third possibility that sometimes experts disagree and people make honest judgments. And this is an area where I feel very uncomfortable talking about since we had this lawsuit filed about 2 weeks ago.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that the motion was addressed and
But we're
the
abs-
issues that we brought up.
We're absolutely looking at exactly what you're bringing up, whether or not this is a work ethic piece, a training piece, or it's a professional standards piece. So I mean I understand exactly what you're talking about. That is exactly what we want to determine, but not so. I mean these cases, unfortunately, or fortunately or unfortunately, the reality is these cases are done as personnel issues. I mean they've already been adjudicated. But our issue is, how does this affect the whole unit's operation? Is there a pattern, or is there not? And we need to make that determination. I'll be here every Monday for you, and we can talk about it.
Well, I don't want to drag it out forever,
I know.
but I could ask the clerk, can I ask why this motion wasn't included on item number 2 on this particular agenda?
See the motion, please.
I don't know how the process works, but it was October 17th and then sent to public safety.
The motion is in the public safety inventory, but in putting the agenda together with the chair's office, we chose, we didn't discuss that motion. We talked about verbal reports for items 1 and 2.
So is this going to come back again, or are we
You
going to
can,
handle it now?
it's up to the committee chair.
Okay, well, I would appreciate if a motion is submitted and we're going to talk about the issue, so we're not redundant on the same matter over and over and over.
At some point, we will be issuing a written report of what we found, what the suggestions are.
Okay.
As part of the chief's instructions relating to the task force that he
Okay.
formed.
And it should address, that report will address everything that's in your motion.
Right.
Okay, good. Thank you.
We're holding the hearing, and we're going to hold the hearing until the issue is resolved in the future. And Chief Beck will continue to make updates, and Mr. Chaliff will accompany him, and when they have a final report to be presented, it's a big issue. And I scheduled this hearing, I think, the minute I read the article in the LA Times. So we're here to discuss the issues. Mr. Reyes? Mr. Parks? Well, thank you for the presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And you and Ms. Stengel will discuss how frequently you want to provide an update on the fingerprint item, when you believe it's appropriate.
Well, yeah, and I'll talk with Ms. Stengel about it, and I'd like to do it as I get information that is substantive for this group. I mean, just the rote reporting, just seeing Charlie come to the meetings probably isn't what you want. I want to give you something when I come in.
But that doesn't jeopardize the lawsuit against the city.
Well, I won't do that. I will.
Thank you,
Sure, I
Chief.
don't do that.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Ms. Sanchez-Owens. Thank you, Mr. Chaliff.
Are you going to reconsider number 5, or are you okay?
Ms. Stengel, I'm confused. Are we hearing another item, or are we not? We're done. Oh, Mr. Parks?
Yeah, let me ask you, what did we finally do on 6? Because
On 6, they're here if you want to ask questions
Well,
of
no.
them. I thought you said you were going to ask questions in Budget and
Budget.
Finance.
But, yeah, that's fine. I thought you said it after we said that you were going to hold it. I was just trying to find
On
out.
6, I believe they left. They were here.
No.
So if it's coming to budget,
No.
we just want to facilitate some funding to get the system fixed. That's why we'd like to get it.
It's also referred to Budget and Finance, so we will be there
Okay.
as an issue. We'll keep it here to hear more from the CLA and such, but it'll be in your committee as well, and you can ask questions then, or you can ask questions now.
Okay, no, we'll just wait to budget.
All right, so,
Can I just ask one question on item 5?
Okay.
I couldn't figure out on 5 what we're accepting, whether we're accepting a contribution of $80,000 or whether we're accepting a roof valued at $80,000.
It was, I understand.
I think the guy built the roof for them.
The
that
roof
right?
was 80,000, they put the roof on. The cost is-
Because the thing is from what I could see at 2 different places in the report, they refer to it as a roof valued at 80, and then they say the donation
No,
of
the
80.
roof was, they gave them the roof.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
and that was the cost of the roof.
Yeah, Mr. Reyes, we're gonna adjourn the hearing because you were gonna start singing. All right, thank you.
On the fingerprints, calendar and transfer agenda, I put
Oh, yes, but it's still in.